Okay, so we have 1 month to get ourselves mentally prepared for some major changes. 1 month, though I know changes are already happening. People are seeing it, whether it's tornadoes and fires and economical upturns and downturns, whatever. But some people have not been affected by it, so you don't think it exists. You think it's in people's heads. You know something's going on, but you can't put your finger on it, and you have something to blame. And I'll tell you this, I'm glad I was raised the way I was raised, because now, when I look back on everything that I've experienced the last 50 years of my life, having those early indicators of danger, regardless if it was contrived or it was organic, having early indicators of danger will save your fucking life. That I did not realize until now. It's when you shield your children and friends and family from the danger is when they will not recognize danger, because you won't always be there to save them. Okay? And so even though it's rough having to learn hard lessons of the world, because you're going to enter into a society that is so violent, that is so predatory, that if you don't train your kids way out of the gate that there is danger out there, they won't survive. There are so many predators out there, people who are hair trigger. There are so many types of people out there that when you do shield your children from all this type of shit, yeah, well, you got to protect them. I understand that. But here's the thing. People are not equipped to understand how to raise children in a very violent, predatory society. Okay? If you're an adult, you've been exposed to danger, and maybe you recognize it for what it is, and you find a way to sidestep it, but it doesn't always happen that way, and then people die suddenly. Or they walk into a situation they can't get out of. Or they think they're immune to situations because they think they are, invincible. And that's a lot of the 20-year-olds out there. They think they're invincible. That's a deadly type of state of existence, that you think you're so invincible that nothing can touch you. Nothing can hurt you because of your stature, because of your weight, because of your influence, until the microbes cut you down to size and you realize you're not as invincible as you claim to be. So this environment is causing people to realize that they're not as invincible as they think they are. And you have sleeper cells in the population that, when triggered, they do some really horrific harm. And now you don't know what's going on in people's lives. You don't know what strangers are holding within. You don't know anything. And so since I've been raised with realizing danger at a young age, not because I was in a dangerous situation, because there was a specific way to get people to know danger and have those feelings of danger at early age. So when later on down the road, even though I made mistakes in my 20s and 30s and 40s, I was able to kid out before I actually got destroyed in that situation. I knew how to talk my way out of something. I knew how to survive a situation. I'll tell you, it's brutal when you're actually when you're playing gladiator out there with your peers who are just as predatory as you are, and you haven't been trained in understanding how the world works. People don't survive. They die suddenly, or they walk into situations, or they become trafficked. And I'll tell you, I've probably experienced so many different situations that I probably could have died in, but I don't say it was luck that I was able to survive it. I would say that, yeah, my training as a child and in my 20s was a major plus in giving me that survival skill to survive my peers. Literally, to survive my peers. And so we're heading into some pretty, even more so aggressive times. People are going off. They are. I can understand now why things happen in the population. Adults and children who have been through some shit are going through some shit, manifesting their trauma through their politics, religion, and science, and even through violent interactions and actions. And that's why the system says, you know what, maybe it's time to stay home and stay safe when you think about it. Maybe it's time not to tempt fate. Maybe it's time to realize that they know what kind of situations they've produced in the population and also what is organic in the population, because we have parents and cultures and families that have produced violence in that whole family genetic line ever since way back 6,000, 7,000 years ago, 300, 400 years ago. So you can't just blame the CIA and MK Ultra and, MI6 and MI5. They aren't solely responsible for all the violence out there. It's been bred into the population for thousands and thousands of years. That's why you have all the ancient wars out there. That's why you have the rising and falling of civilizations. Because how long do you think that kind of situation can go when you have such predatory people constantly reproducing, pretending everything is beautiful until it's not being aware of the dangers that are out there? Everything's about love, 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 and all toxic positivity, and I'm at peace, everything is great. Denial. Why do you think all the conspiracy theorists are so negative? Because they know society is not the beauty that people claim it is. It's not beautiful out there. It's damn right fucking ugly out there. And that is the truth. That is reality. You can say, oh, that's just how you choose to look at it, all right? You can play those manipulation games of denial. But when you look at how you came into this picture, you look at how your children came into this picture, you look at around you, the death and destruction and all the violence and everything, you can't possibly say the world is beautiful and you're so at peace. You know what? You know how you prove that you're at peace and everything is wonderful is when you're in rest and peace, when you're in the mortuary, in the morgue, watching your body jump up and down because all the microbes took you down because you wanted to be at peace and you were in denial, didn't realize you were in a war that you were not equipped to fight. But the denial is what keeps people going, playing that game until their body can't handle that denial anymore. And so, the conspiracy community is so negative because the world is already falling apart. You're seeing it. I knew it a long time ago. Why do you have so many conspiracy people in the world? Because they've been exposed to violence and feeling the fight or flight syndrome at such an early age. They know the world is not correct. But what will society look like when there is no violence? Well, even a new microbe coming into the population and people mischaracterizing evolution would then be construed as violence if someone doesn't change the narrative around that. But what happens is that people compound the issue with all the different remedies and drugs and operations. But society has been falling apart for years. The conspiracy community know this. But how do you tell a population fucking denial under the influence? Everything's happy, happy, joy, joy. They love their friends and family. They're worshiping something, looking for a savior, hunting for a Satan. And so when you realize that the emperor has no clothes, but all your friends and family who are in fucking denial of the world that they live in are saying, oh, the emperor has clothes. It is maddening. Oh, let me tell you, I felt it the last 10 years when I've been exploring the side of the conspiracy community. And then, of course, being able to handle the violence in my community. I already have the indicators of disease and indicators of danger already programmed into me at an early age. So I was able to save myself in situations that some people couldn't save themselves. Okay, because I knew I was the system knew I was entering into a very violent society, such as California. Extremely violent, extremely sexual, extremely intolerant. And some people were lucky enough to be in more of a homogenized family, a homogenized community, but they didn't realize that there is a bigger world out there that is not as safe as their homogenized community. And when climate change comes to you, and you weren't equipped to deal with the changes, people then attack change, attack themselves, and destroy themselves. And that's what happens in homogenized communities when people don't recognize danger for what it is. So now you're seeing the population react to climate change, and that's when I posted that article about how climate change that they even recorded back in 2014 has caused mental illness. How do you mean has caused? Has brought up what was already inside of people. And then, of course, all the died suddenly. All the cancer, disease, and chronic illness and autoimmune disorders. You already hold those microbes, those trauma memory cells in your body. You already hold the disease within. It was just a matter of time before it came up. And you can activate your immune system with the therapy. People activate their immune system with food, water, air, and then also the climate change. Okay? A day or so ago, I felt the heart palpitations that others are resisting, but what do? I feed those heart palpitations and I take a nap. But I see others when they feel that heart palpitation, they're taking anti-VIRALSs. They're taking things to try to stop their body from trying to release the demons. But see, that's the thing. They don't have the capacity to deal with pain and suffering. And that is like a stargate. The pain and suffering is a stargate. It's your magical powers. And think about it. That's the catalyst to your pineal gland. And when you are calcifying your pineal gland with all the remedies and surgeries and all the different supplements and extracts and detoxes, then you're just a robot. And then you don't even listen to indicators. Because then you become the predator. You become the danger that people aren't even realizing that. And so that's how people are hanging out together. Because they're predators to each other. They don't realize it because they've lost the indicators. They've lost their ability to really feel. And so then they intellectualize things without actually feeling and acknowledging their gut feelings. They don't have any more gut feelings. Now everything is intellectualized to death. And then they justify. And that's the thing about, and that's why I write what I write, because psychologically I know how all this works. Biophysically I know how this works. And when you finally connect all the five senses and the psychological operations and all the biological operations, then you see why people operate the way they do. And then you're like, whoa, holy shit. And then everything is in plain sight. What you see people write on Facebook is in plain sight. If given the chance, they would harm somebody. If given the chance, they would genocide somebody. If given the chance, they would be very dangerous to people. But since they're not given that chance, and they don't want to be like those who they think are oppressing them, they just manifest it through their words. But their words are violent. The words are so intolerant and aggressive. And so the system wants to see that. They want to see people who are even denying the violence within them, and they're all about love. And they're all about, oh, I'm so peaceful. Oh, if you're so peaceful, everything is so peaceful, then prove it with a death certificate. But they'd rather have you be in denial and promote denial of that you're in peace and everything is loving than be completely hateful. But even then, people who are like all about peace and love and all that shit, then don't like those who are calling things for what they are. Then they become psychologically manipulative, passive aggressive. Oh, my shit doesn't stink. Oh, look, I'm so beautiful and peaceful and everything's wonderful in my life. Knowing that the world is falling apart around them, but everything is still wonderful, happy, happy, joy, joy. They can't even face what they have done to themselves, what they've done to society. They will never face it. Because remember, they're under the influence, happy, happy, joy, joy, and they'll just be in that denial until they die suddenly. Which is fine, I guess. But, why do I have an issue with that? Well, because that's why our society is falling apart, because those are in denial. Why do I have an issue with that? Because that's what is contributing to the denial. When people quirk up their emotions, when they're under the influence of cannabis and speed 'em up drugs and friends and family who don't ever let them self-express, and so they're quirked up and they're getting bigger, 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 or emaciated, aging aggressively. intolerant to the environment. They have children who are intolerant to the environment, and you see what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. You can't stop it. But remember, I have the indicators of danger. And when I see that people are so in denial, and you see what denial does to families, what it does to society. That's why the conspiracy community came into being, because eventually we had to stop being in denial. As the system had to innovate it even more, and more electricity and more energy was added to the environment because of innovation, and because there is danger in the population, and the system has to surveil people who are dangerous, and that also includes electricity and other things. Yeah, they were going to see people popping off in the population. And so the system does what it does for a reason. But when you have corked up all your cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and all your trauma, and you're under the influence on a constant basis, partying aggressively, and pretending that the world is beautiful when it really isn't right now, you won't see danger for what it is. And then it's tough to watch. But that's okay. But people, they think that they can love me to death. That's what I see all over my Facebook. They're like, oh, they'll just love bomb me. That's the thing that's really crazy, is those that are in denial, they love bomb the shit out of me. They love bomb the shit out of each other. And when you see that denial, that everything is so wonderful, when knowing exactly it's not, man. But see, Jillian, you have to let them be in denial, because you can't do anything. Oh, I know that. But as far as my humanity and my instincts and my adrenal glands, fight or flight, to deny that denial exists causing the destruction of our society would be inhumane. I can't pretend that everything is great when it's not. I can't pretend that my husband is not in danger out there in the population of crazy ass fucking people. I can't pretend that. No, I worry about him. I worry about my community. I worry about a lot of things I know I can't do anything about. But if I don't worry about it, then I'll pretend everything is great and walk into situations that would be unfavorable. And so now the actual healthy, when I think about, in my opinion, an actual balanced way of our society is not only recognizing what we have contributed to the violence and the denial and all the bullshit that goes on, but also recognizing other people as we see it in ourselves, and recognize our own violent speech against others, a person, place, or thing, culture, and then also see it in other people. And then choose not to take part in all of that. That when you can legitimately see it in yourself, the violence in yourself, the denial in yourself, the whole love bombing other people in yourself, then when you think about it, you do have the right to see it in other people, because then you don't want to mix in with the general population. You realize why this system does what it does. You realize why they're cleaning up society when you watch people who are so fucking hair trigger, who would do violence if given the chance, and could, because we have so many people in the population that have seen crazy ass shit, that have seen violence, that have been part of war. Their neighborhood is dangerous. Their friends and family are dangerous. Their childhood was dangerous. And it was under the layers of cures until those cures melt away because of climate shifting. The monster woke up within, and holy shit, here we go. So yeah, I can't be in denial. I can't love bomb the shit out of people. I can't pretend that everything is beautiful, because it's not. The system told you, you're seeing it. And how do you prepare people for this? Well, the system's been doing it. They've been telling you, stay home and stay safe. April 8th, stock up on some food and water for at least 3 days, and have a full gas tank, and whatever it is they're telling you without completely alarming you. And they're saying maybe it's time to chill out on all the consumption. But yeah, the system is cleaning up society because of what we have bred in people. And you can see it all over your Facebook. Again, the violence or the love bombs. Or, hey, look, I have a bunch of children. Look, all my children. I'm having even more children. The system's like, oh my God. For every life, there's a death. And then all out extinction. That's universe 25. In a big family with one mother and a father, and they have 6 or 7 children, that's universe 25. That's going to be all out extinction. Because the kids are at a deficit, the parents are at a deficit, all intolerant to food, water, and air, predatory because they're that deficient, hanging out with a bunch of people because they're that deficient, so they need all these people around them to manage their needs and wants and give them whatever they want and need, and then they all annihilate each other. That's universe 25, when people have so many children and hang with so many different people, not understanding what the fuck is going on. That's why the system is cleaning up the system. Because we have so many people who are in denial and violent and predatory and loving bombing the shit out of each other because they're in that much denial. And when I see it, I can't just deny that it's there. I'll say it. I'll never confront people. But I'll take memes that people put out there and I'll go in and modify it based upon where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to attack them. But when you see it, you can't unsee it. Well, shouldn't things be left unsaid? Yeah, that's called being corked up. People say, oh, I got to manage. I gotta withhold saying things when I have so much to say. And I'm like, why would you fucking do that? That causes cancer. I see, I even hear all the sirens right now. It's fucked up out there. I hear the banshees right now. The sirens are banshees. You need to say what you need to say. Why the fuck would you not say it? That's why your friends and family have cancer and disease, because you're trying to tell them to manage your emotions and not say anything when you should probably be saying some stuff. And if it's that aggressive, and say it on Facebook and let your community absorb it and do whatever they do with it. But maybe now it's time to save yourself instead of sparing others of whatever feelings you have. Let them fucking block you. That's their choice if they tune into you. But I'm telling you, man, the only way to save yourself is you let those emotions that everyone told you to keep inside, let it out on Facebook. You don't need to let it out on your friends and family. But some of you have so much aggressive energy. Like, I can only imagine some of these people that have so much of the PTSD in their world, and they have a husband or a wife, and they're going off on people around them. Can you imagine what goes on in that family? The domestic violence? Can you imagine what's going on with those poor children? You can only imagine when people who have that much pent up anxiety and anger from whatever they went through, and this environment is causing them to trigger it even more, what people around them are dealing with. And so if you don't let it out somehow, where you feel heard or where you feel like something is being released, can you imagine the supernova? So that's why the system does what it does. But people will also be at different levels of supernova. People don't always pass away from the climate change, but the monsters within start moving and throwing up on the world. And you don't want to get caught in the crossfire. And so I wrote this. I said, climate change, bringing out the worst in people and their inherited acquired diseases. And that's why you're seeing all the diet suddenly, people getting obesity or extreme emaciation or love bombing the shit out of you or so concerned for their children because of this, and this. I'll tell you, the system wants extremely innovative children who learn very fast. That's why the school system is the way it is. Why they're even more accelerated as far as their expectations and the innovation. If you can't keep up with what the system is trying to do, eventually, if you can't keep up, then that's probably better that you can't keep up with the school system. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get little imhoteps. They want kids that read so fast, comprehend so fast, can acquire so much information in a short amount of time, as fast as possible, because they know they're working with very limited time with these children who have gifts. But you hope they realize their potential before they die suddenly. But if you're trying to keep up with everyone in the school system, then your kid may not, will psychologically be like depressed or be psychologically harmed because they can't keep up with their peers, because the system is going to accelerate their expectations and see who can keep up. And if you can't, that's okay. But that's the thing. Then people think that like they're stupid and think their kids stupid and they want their kids to be smart. But that's what you're dealing with, is the system sped. When people were type A and B with all that antigen back in the 80s in Silicon Valley, and I didn't have that, I would type O. I wasn't allowed to compete with my sister. I was in my own school doing my own thing because we weren't competing on a level playing field. I had a slower developmental process than my sister. She developed very quickly as far as her learning process, and I developed very slowly. And that does something to somebody. But guess what? My slow development process gave me the latitude to build up my body and figure some shit out and learn about the world and go through the bullshit. So that way, when I'm 50, I can learn extremely fast. I didn't supernova and peak in high school or peak in my 20s. Maybe aesthetic-wise, I peaked in my 20s looking hot and sexual. But now that I'm at 50, I see things for what they are. I don't look exactly completely like a monster. But psychologically, I'm good. And mentally, I'm pretty fit. And intellectually, I can learn as much as I can and want in a short amount of time. But these kids, that's what I'm saying, these kids are going to be brought up to a standard so quick. And it's going to be so difficult when they can't keep up with their peers who have a lot more maybe of the kinetic energy and the substance. And that's why you cannot let your kids even try to compare themselves to others, because they're not competing on a level playing field. So I feel sorry for parents who are trying to have their kids keep up with the smartest person in the class and with the intentions of the system. Public school is going to be a nightmare for some people. And it is. And many parents use their children as a barometer of who they are. And that's horrible. But what are you going to do? Parents have their own issues of lack of acceptance and their own shortcomings and whatever. So anyways, so many of you have observed, experienced directly or indirectly how climate change is affecting yourself, your family, friends, and even coworkers. You might not make the correlation that climate change is bringing it up in people, but you have experienced and even blamed other things you perceive as causing society to go into controlled chaos. Okay, so controlled chaos or controlled demolition are necessary when a product that was once hailed to be the next thing turned out to be completely the opposite and also dangerous to the future. Examples of controlled demolitions resulting in the type of controlled chaos could be planned building demolitions, war in specific regions, pandemics, and disease leading to a die suddenly, regardless if it was expected or someone notices an increase in frequency. As you may or may not know, many people in the population have experienced some kind of trauma in their background, where it be violence in the family, domestic violence, aggressive addictions, inherited diseases, or voluntary and involuntary experiences in war, and workplace violence. What is not always readily known are the sleeper cells, or people who have had violence in their background and not consciously aware of the violence they experience, all of a sudden start getting triggered by people, places, and things. Why does that happen? And you're going to find that memory cells develop from little experiences to aggressive traumatic experience, images, and noises relative to how influential they are. The body can purge them naturally over time or metastasize those memories when all the conditions are right. Okay, so it's the memory cells. Why is it that people are getting triggered? Because what was once under all those cures and denial and the love bombing, then you can't hide behind the love bombing, the denial, and the aggression. Now you got to face what was held inside. You got to release it, but how is it going to get released? How is it going to manifest? And then little slights that people do, or what they think perceive as slights, turns into a huge freaking World War III. People make mountains out of molehills, but they had so much inside that what they perceive as something against them becomes something of a war. And they bottle up even more so inside until one day they explode, and who knows is going to be in the crossfire. That's why I try to avoid hanging out with people and avoid situations with people, because you never know what kind of shit people are holding inside and how it's going to come out. And so memory cells develop from little experiences to aggressive traumatic experiences, images and noises is what then metastasize or sometimes gets purged out or gets triggered. And so relative to how influential they are, the body can purge them naturally over time or metastasize those memories when all the conditions are right. Disease is usually the first indicator of some kind of traumatic memories people hold, and people are encouraged to cork up their disease, further compounding the situation. Or they have them carve it out, oncology, surgeries, doing more damage to the person's body. However, over time, those corked up emotions trapped in the body, not allowed to release, become a monster people cannot ignore. Sometimes the system can manage that monster with drugs and coping mechanisms, as that monster is now part of the controlled demolition of that person as the person gets treated time after time until hospice. What many people do not anticipate is relative to the trauma, the sleeper cells go undetected until the climate shifts so aggressively, people supernova or are hair trigger. And the system hopes that most people who are that hair trigger or supernova and pass away versus having to deal with their decline of suffering and aggression and blaming and all of that. And that's what's going on in the last how many years, is that they've watched people decline so aggressively, and all the trauma they've experienced comes out in violence. It comes out in predatory behaviors, comes out in so many things. That's why they have so many agencies. That's why you can't walk around after dark, after midnight. That's why women have to be very careful where they go. That's why girls have to be careful on the internet. That's why drinking with a bunch of strangers in this environment can be very dangerous. You don't know what you're triggering. This is when you realize how dangerous society can be when triggered by people's person-to-person interaction with one another. Strangers and even coworkers can be extremely dangerous and unpredictable, which is why you treat all people you interact with daily in each other's presence with kid gloves. You be very careful how you position things. You be very careful with the messages that you send. You be very careful with how you interact with people you don't know. So the system knows what kind of PTSD the general population holds, and they also know how climate change will bring out the worst in people, which is why I stay home and stay safe, and I rarely mix in with strangers, and why I'm also polite and act defensively on the road. So when you're trying to teach people lessons on the road because you're like, oh God, they cut me off. Who cares? Let them cut you off. Just be defensive. Stay in the slow lane. Okay? There's no reason to be an enforcer now. But you know how people are, they get triggered. So it is bad out there, very bad out there, and it will only get worse, and we will be heading into a time when the environment will bring out even the worst in your community, which is why you listen to the sheriff when he says stay home April 8th if you are in those areas viewing the eclipse. Men and women who have been through some crap will start waking up, and you do not want to be caught in the crossfire. It is dangerous for children and unaware adults. Be mindful. So no amount of love bombing to your community and everyone is going to save you if you don't understand danger for what it is. Love will not save the day. It is not about love. I'll tell you that. It is not about love. Because that will then blind you to the danger that you're in when you're love bombing yourself, love bombing everyone around you. But again, if that is in your genetic line, that you cannot face the crap within, and you cannot face the indicators that are out there, then that's why when the system does turn up the heat to such an extent, potentially even the love bombers may not even survive. That's the danger of love bombing the shit out of your friends and families. You probably do not have what it takes to survive climate change because you're under the influence of oxytocin. And that's probably why the 1960s happened the way it was, the way it happened with the sexual revolution, the drug revolution, the religious revival. People are hiding behind religion, drugs, love, and sex. And so they won't have the capacity because they don't have the capacity to deal with change. And the system is tired of dealing with the decline of people manifesting in their aggressive politics, religion, and science. That, yeah, it'll be like a rapture of sorts. But they already told you this. It's not like you didn't know this. The system and the conspiracy community has been telling people this. The religious community has been warning people of this. Okay? You just chose to be in denial and say everything is great. Nothing's going on with me. Yeah, okay. Or why are you on these speed 'em up drugs? Why are you under all these supplements? And so when I posted that leaked information from NASA, the Pentagon, the Anunnaki are returning to Earth. Okay. And I wonder what April 8th is going to bring us, I posted some pictures from AI of that eclipse with the Anunnaki coming down, and the people are looking up. I'm like, oh God, here we go. Okay, so I was watching, I'm just going to go down my timeline. I was watching Grey's Anatomy the last, I've been watching it for a while. It's like 19 seasons, so I'm like in it. But she was mentioning genetic markers. She was afraid of that she would get Alzheimer's. She had just adopted a baby, and she has a genetic marker of Alzheimer's. And there's also genetic markers of the BRCA gene, which is a breast cancer gene, and other different genes that people get mastectomies. They get things just cut off because they don't want to trigger that at some point and try to head it off. But that's even more damage to your body. You see, with the whole J world and me pulling out the crap and feeling and expressing everything, those genetic markers don't have to become influential. They can be caught. They can be caught and inherited, but they also can be released. So you can actually catch genetic markers. You can catch Alzheimer's, dementia. You can catch cancer. And you can also inherit all of it. It doesn't mean that you have to be afflicted by it, but they also can be released. Okay? But you'd have to feel whatever you need to feel. You couldn't try to treat it. You'd have to release it, because when you treat anything, it metastasizes the situation, because those cells do convert. When you have an influential system that has an opposing force that's so influential, it'll convert whatever you think is going to fight for you. It'll turn into a traitor. You see, that's the thing when you have, like, when you're in a group of people and you want to bring in like your friend that will help you, deal with that situation. And so that the influential people in that group will then even convert your friend to work against you if that group is really wanting to destroy you. And so that's the thing, is that no matter how much of mercenaries you bring to fight for you, if you're not very influential yourself or can release those demons of opposing forces, then those opposing forces that you're trying to fight will actually convert the things that are working for you to work against you. And that's why you release the demons. You don't try to bring in other forces to work for you, because, except for food, and you have to release. You cannot play this game of, well, I'm going to try to convert you, because opposing forces in people, that's why they have disease and cancer and all that stuff, because they've allowed those opposing forces to be so influential that no matter what you do, it'll be converted to work against you. Okay? And so, yeah, so the ticking time bomb is in our society. Climate change can lead to post-traumatic stress disorder. Climate change can lead to an increase in frequency of disasters, such as floods, which are associated with PTSD, which secondarily would be associated with psychological distress. The possible effects of mitigation measures on mental health are also discussed. The paper concludes with a discussion of what can and should be done to tackle the expected mental health issues consequent to climate change. Okay? And so this was written back in 2014. Increased exposure to heat is likely to become more common with the rise in the global temperatures. It has been suggested that there is a relation between temperature rise and aggressive behavior. Remember the Santa Ana winds in California? Those winds blow, and people start getting a little crazy. Crime and disease and die suddenly and violent behaviors. Increase in rates of criminality and aggression have been observed during a hot summer month, suggesting a link between aggressive behaviors and temperature. With global warming, it is possible that the rates of aggressive aggression may increase over time. Association has been seen with the rates of suicides and the temperatures. It has been seen that suicides, especially violent ones, are more common with the recent increase in temperatures. Now watching people around you completely supernova because the amount of growth that's happening that they can't control, and it has traumatic memories that are held inside those cells. Heat waves have been associated with mental and behavioral disorders. A study from Australia suggests that heat waves are associated with increased rates of admission for mental disorders, also in conjunction with other disorders such as cardiovascular and renal illness. Such heat waves have been associated with mood disorders, anxiety disorders, dementia, and anxiety-related disorders, among others. Extreme heat exposure can lead to physical as well as psychological exhaustion. A study from Thailand suggests that occupational heat stress is associated with greater psychological distress among the workers. Imagine being in a sweatshop somewhere in Vietnam or China. Similar other studies have found an association between increased temperatures in the workplace and greater psychological stress. Okay, so when I feel the climate change, and I know that there's shit going on outside, and I feel the heat, oh yeah, you'll see then the banshee in me coming out more aggressively. The last few weeks, you saw how much the aggression, even probably today. Individuals who have not been through the experience of climate-related natural disasters are not only at a higher risk developing PTSD. Okay, individuals who have been through the experience of climate-related natural disasters are not only at a higher risk of developing PTSD, but also at a greater risk of developing acute stress reaction and adjustment disorder. Okay, and so climate-related natural disasters, it could be war. It could be violence in the family. It's not only just the floods and the fires. But you're seeing the fires in Texas, the floods in California, floods in different parts. You're seeing probably 10 feet of snow in the Sierras going to be happening too. Those who are living out there in Pollock Pines or the Sierras are going to be dealing with a lot of snow. And that will probably bring up some kind of PTSD because of what they dealt with the last year and the year before. These disorders are anxiety spectrum disorders, which can subside over a period of time with rehabilitations and or treatment. Other stress-exacerbated disorders include development of acute and transient psychosis and relapse of bipolar disorder. Faced with loss of home, environment, social structures, and loved ones, an individual may develop a bereavement, grief reaction, or depression. That depression is likely to be more pronounced in those who live in small rural communities than those living in big cities who are seeing it all around them, so they're kind of desensitized to it, right? As I said, remember, when you've been homogenized in your little small town, wherever it is, and there's like the climate change coming to you versus you going to climate change, people don't have the capacity to deal with those changes. They supernova. So as the impact of climate change seems to be increasing over the time period, it is likely that a greater proportion of the population would be impacted by the mental health consequences of climate change related disasters. And also the economy. If you read that whole article, I mean, I'm not going to read the whole article, but I read a lot of it. But there is like drought and farmer suicide, economic changes due to climate change and effect on mental health, migration and acculturation stress. When I said, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't be living in California, maybe you shouldn't be living in Florida, maybe you shouldn't be living on the coast of the eastern seaboard because of tornadoes, but hurricanes and other types of flooding, coastal flooding, local coastal flooding. Maybe it's time to move to a small town that's not really small, but like Ohio, but not so much southern Ohio and middle Ohio, because they had a lot of different, they had maybe six different tornadoes in Ohio, but 11 over there in Gary, Indiana. But I couldn't promise you that even Ohio, here where I live, wouldn't be hit by a tornado. But then I'm prepared to lose everything. I have absolutely no attachment to all the things I have here. I could start over again if I really had to. Because I expect that something's going to happen. It may or may not happen, but I will expect the worst, hope for the best, and prepare for many changes. Okay? And so there's migration and acculturation stress, association with physical illnesses, effects of adaptation and mitigation measures. People are doing all the surgeries. What needs to be done. Okay, you can read all this stuff. And there's a conclusion. And so the conclusion is climate change is likely to affect mental health in many ways. Droughts, floods, rising sea level, increasing ambient temperatures, and other consequences of climate change can produce increasing psychological distress through many mediators. These mediators include economic strain, migration and acculturation stress, lowering social capital, and traumatic events, amongst others. Efforts to increase access to mental health services and attempts to mitigate the climate change with time would be appropriate responses to deal with the challenge of climate change in the time to come. Okay, and that was written back in 2014. So you can only imagine what they're preparing you for. And then I posted also, I shared Butler County Sheriff Office. Do you know they say preparation is key to success? Their ERS hazmat members aren't the only ones getting refreshed lately. Take a look at our emergency response services hazardous materials like unit trailer. It's a 2013 trailer that was gutted, shown a little TLC, and put back into service for the community. I wonder why. And then the other one here, what is it, Summit County? Our bomb squad and crisis negotiators are spending the day training at the closed Regal Cinema in Greene today. That's over there in Greene, Ohio, which is right near Akron, in between Canton and Akron. Okay, right down the street from me. And so this whole thing with now people in all the rabbit holes and everything, and the whole and people are celebrating the Rothschild, the death of him and all that. And I don't know him for anything. I read all the stories about him. I don't know if he's a baby eating reptilian. I have no idea, and I don't really even care. I'm not going to assume that's true. Okay, so when you're saying, oh yeah, take the red pill, don't take the blue pill, people are still getting token on the red pill. They're lost in the red pill. They're going down rabbit holes, and they don't ever want to catch them, because if they caught the rabbit, then they either have to eat it, and then what? Now what? Or they would have it would die. They would die with that story. And so either way, both sides are storylines, the red pill or the blue pill. How deep will you go into each side? When will you walk away from the war trying to prove your storyline? Even my whole Jilly Juice and the immortality and people, corking up their demons and all that. I mean, I can't get people to figure shit out, and that they may not even have the capacity to understand where I'm coming from. So my whole point now is just observing the world that I live in and reporting on it. Because there's nothing I can do to get people to understand where I'm coming from, because they may not have the capacity to. And then it becomes, an obsession to get people to change and understand you when they may not even have the ability. So then I'm just observing the world, because people will either figure it out or they won't, whatever that figure out means. And so at what point does even the red pill become something to choke on? Right? And so this whole thing with the rabbit hole and Morpheus, he said, this is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends, right? The story. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe, okay? Politics, religion, and science. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I'm telling you, people are still stuck in the rabbit hole, and they are supernovaing in that rabbit hole, okay? And so then I posted a picture of these kids that finally caught the rabbit, and they're so upset that they caught the rabbit because now the chase is done with. And now it's either death or reproduction, right? So I don't believe or disbelieve anything. Some things there's nothing I can do, and there's no point getting mad. But if you get mad, find a way to channel it to your benefit without making accusations. Be the one to survive and find a way to move forward. Because what will happen once you catch the rabbit? People don't want to ever catch the rabbit because that chase is what they're addicted to. Look at all the activists. They're addicted to their activism. That rabbit needs to be out there. They can't catch a rabbit, because once they catch a rabbit, they're dead. Because what will happen once you catch the rabbit? People don't want to ever catch a rabbit because that chase is what they're addicted to. People are addicted to chasing rabbits down the rabbit holes. They never want to catch the rabbit. It was never about catching the rabbit. It was the chase. It was the story. It was the justification for their life. The only time the story ends is if they end that story with another story, or they end their own life voluntarily. Because a rabbit was never meant to be caught. They were only meant to be eaten or as a pet, and then the pet dies. And so Indiana is saying that total solar eclipse, before the solar eclipse, they want you to ensure you have a full gas tank, ensure you are stocked on groceries, have alternative communication. And Summit County Sheriff said, stay home if you can. And other places are actually, Ohio is now trickling in with all the school closures, trickling in. Okay. And so there's this kid that keeps track of the weather and also school closures. He's saying, well, I'm going to not give out a master list of school closures yet because they are going to be trickling in. So March is going to be the preparation for April. March. March. The Ides of March. The Ides of March. Hello. When you channel Alice in Wonderland, you'll go down endless rabbit holes until the queen chops off your head. We're going into a new society where all the mess that people are injured, where all of that mess that people were injured by will be in the past or so underground you'll never find it. It's time to move forward. I celebrate no deaths. I celebrate life. The New World Order means that all that mess needs to be put behind you. You are alive for a reason because somebody gave you that spark. How will you use that spark of life? Only you will know. You can spend your life chasing rabbits and end up over the cliff with everyone that you're trying to claim justice for, or you can be the one that survives. So there are people out there that claim that somebody did something to them, and that's why they are glad, that's why they're this and that. And yeah, the conspiracy community, I'll tell you, has developed a lot of people with a lot of axes to grind. And it's just a matter, I mean, I was in the conspiracy community, and I had a lot of axes to grind that I finally was able to grind those axes down to almost nothing and release the axe and release everything and realize that I was lucky enough to be alive. I was lucky enough, and I worked hard to save myself. That no matter whatever cards that were dealt me way back when and even today, I was able to redirect and save myself. And there's no reason to claim justice for anything. Okay, no matter what you went through, whether it was contrived or organic, or whatever happened to somebody else, you can't do shit about it. You can only help yourself and save yourself. And so staying stuck in those paradigms of having to claim justice for things of the past that you survived or it never even happened to you, it happened to somebody else, what's the point? But that's the thing. People, when they have those rabbit holes and they go down those rabbit holes, they're now suffocating in those rabbit holes. They're not coming up for air. They will be the ones who will die suddenly. All right. So what purpose does it serve to believe the power elite are baby-eating reptilians who want to suck on the loose? Even if it is true, I treat them no different than any predator in my neighborhood that was convicted of a crime and then set free. Because even allegations are almost like a conviction in this day and age. People believe everything, especially when they love to hate. So what do? When I see a convicted criminal in my neighborhood who already served their time, and when there are allegations rumored all over the internet, it's really none of my business. And if I see something, I will say something, but there is no point in going on a wild goose chase, hunting people you think are Satan or the devil. See, you don't want to do that. Why? And I will never put myself in position to be used and abused by someone who I think could get me ahead. And that's why these girls were victimized. But by Epstein, P. Diddy allegedly, or R. Kelly. Their parents were hungry for fame and fortune. The girls were hungry for fame and fortune, the easy street. And when you take the shortcuts, you never know what that's going to do to you. So that whole situation was a lesson to all of us. When you think that selling your soul and being so ambitious, putting yourself in positions to be a victim, well, maybe not. Don't be so ambitious. Don't sell your soul. It's not worth it. Well, maybe it is. Then you end up becoming a victim and crying foul later. Okay, like these girls in Playboy Mansion. They got their fame and fortune. They got easy street for a minute, but they went through some hell to doing it. Well, the system's trying to show you that when you're trying to get ahead and that ambitious and willing to sell your soul, that yeah, you had to pay the piper somehow, right? The reason why people are victims is because they're either so naive and they walk into a danger, or they're so overtly ambitious they're willing to sell their soul, and their parents help them sell their soul. When your own parents sell your soul, it's kind of hard to avoid that situation. Right now, Paris Hilton is developing a legislation against institutionalized child abuse because she was victimized at that Provo, Utah institution where her parents sent her for troubled teens, and she was victimized. And you can never prove that it was intentional or it was someone who acted on their own volition causing that whatever. And we know how shit goes. I know how shit goes. But hey, she's doing good for society by developing new legislation against institutionalized child abuse. Okay, good for her. And then I'm looking at going like, well, does she know that it could or could not be, contrived? It was maybe intentional, but you can't prove it. You can speculate. I speculate all the time, all the things that go on out there. But you'll never be able to prove it. But hey, if doing good by developing legislation to protect others from those situations that really you can't protect, but it gives you something to do, fine. Good for you. I just say, hey, no matter what happens, survive it and turn it into whatever it is you need to turn it into. And that's kind of our society, is somebody develops problems here, and then somebody over here is either reacting to it or trying to stop it. And it's just, I just walk away from the war. I don't play any, I'm done with it. I don't put myself voluntarily in situations where someone can use you as a tool, unbeknownst to you. When I see these volunteers that go and do all these things with the police and everything, and I'm like, oh, CITIZENS Academy, and they're going in and they're volunteering to help the POLICE and the stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, that's good for them. They're helping their community. And the other side of it, they could be in a situation where they don't realize it's a live situation. They think it's something else, and then, oh shit, somebody's a patsy. See, I know how this world works, so I just, you know what, I just keep my nose clean. I follow the laws. I don't volunteer for shit. And I help people in a way where it gives them choices, but I don't go and actually try to save people. I'm not at making accusations. I just say there's probably a lot more storylines attached to a situation than the one that you hear about. And even the other ones that are, you know, that are around that you can also consider. It doesn't matter if that storyline over here is true or not true, or that one over here is true or not true, because it's out of your hands. But you recognize that there are many storylines, and do you want to be another storyline to somebody else's world? And so that's when you figure out how to walk away from the war. So desperate people find themselves in unfavorable situations. Protect yourself, protect your family, and try not to believe everything you hear and see and read. Because even then you don't know what's behind any soundbite. You don't know who's behind what somebody is doing, and anyone who can make accusations and claim and write stories. So then it's time to have a discernment and develop your own storyline, or you will fall for somebody else's. All right. And I did the math on my anniversary date. My husband and I, we got married 9/24/2011, and that equals 19. And then 1 + 9 is 10. 1 + 0 is 1. It's fucking awesome. It's like so synchronistic. It's so crazy. And as far as the Stargate, okay, your pineal gland, when you think about the Stargate, and it's all arguable how many Stargates really, and some people say there's 2, some people say there's 12, some people say there's like 3. But for shits and giggles, I said there's 2, someone said there's 2 Stargates that we know in this world, whether it's Giza or Antarctica and some other place. But I figure that your pineal gland is a Stargate. Just from even reading about that and even watching that reel about Nibiru and Stargate and going to other portals in time, when I was going through the pain and suffering and I was seeing some crazy shit, it was like I opened up a Stargate. When I didn't treat anything, I just coughed and sneezed and blew my nose and slept. And when I was sleeping, I was seeing crazy ass colors. I was seeing so many things flying, crazy dreams. That's kind of like a Stargate when you think about it. We have a collective Stargate of humans who are all clones of each other with different characteristics that are the same, but collectively we're not aligned. So it's hard to really see an aligned collective Stargate, the third one, unless all of us are under some type of new world order. With the same, with all of us understanding that we came from, where we came from, and the system is giving us that through ancient aliens and all of that, and then with all this climate change. And then eventually, humanity will be one collective Stargate, tapping into our own personal Stargates and seeing things for what they really are. And then there goes the religion, there goes the politics, there goes all the scientific dogmas. And then we'll tap into our own pineal gland to have our mind directly into the universe. And then then you don't really have any more wars. What would you be fighting about? Because right now we have religious wars, political wars, and scientific wars. Why do we have war? Because people are like, oh, my story is better than your story. You know, my way of doing things is better than your way of doing things. And so once we get rid of all the wars because of all the different differing storylines, then you can only imagine the potential of humans when they collectively are on the same page. And it's not happening now. Fuck no, it's not happening now. You can't even get people in the same household to be aligned. Some people live in the past, some people live in the future, some people live in the present, and it's like... And so I said some of you haven't even really decalcified your pineal gland, but you've forced your pineal gland to move when it was not conditioned to move. And that's all the ayahuasca and the psychedelics, the mushrooms, all that shit. That's the psychedelic community attached to the energy healing world, right? And then the type of things, and then that type of thing ages a person aggressively fast. Potential symptoms of a calcified pineal gland may include insomnia and migraine attacks. And you know what people do? They take a bunch of melatonin, or they're taking all these anti-headache medication, further damaging themselves even more. And so then I figured out, oh shit, when you bottle up, when you're in denial, when you bottle up all your angst and trauma and all these things that people do when they're taking all their supplements and speed them up drugs and oxytocin, surrounding themselves with animals and children and all that and distractions. Corked up leads to common types of chronic diseases: Alzheimer's disease, arthritis, cancer, chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease, chronic respiratory diseases, diabetes, heart disease, mental health disorders, obesity, and emaciation. And so what does corked up mean? To not allow yourself to express your anger, worry, or sadness. And so it's controlling emotions. So when people are like, oh, everything is great, I'm beautiful and I'm peaceful and I love everybody and you're so beautiful and all this other shit. Yeah, that's corked up emotions. Okay? And what does that mean? Let me read it. Jeez. Denial is the opiate for the masses. And someone says, oh yeah, I'm at peace. Everything is so peaceful. Yeah, the dead don't talk. So are you really at peace? Because life is never peaceful. Life is always full of chemical reactions. And so denial is the opiate for the masses. Make sure your peace isn't really rest in peace. People who are not at peace have to convince the world they are in peace because they cannot survive chaos to develop peace, not rest in peace. You know how you prove you're at peace? In peace? Death certificate. I never want to be at peace 100%. I'm not looking to die. If you truly want to be at peace, go live in a mortuary. When I'm sleeping, I'm at peace sometimes. My aim is never to be at peace 100%. That's called rest in peace. It is surviving the chaos is what gives you the ability to earn your small bouts of peace without rest in peace. To truly survive your society, you cannot assume you will ever be at peace unless you want to end up in the mortuary. Which is why I don't promote cures, because I don't want to cure someone to death, so they are looking forward to being at peace. The fire, that fight within you, is what keeps you alive, especially when times are tough. It's those who have to depend on others to give them the fire to survive because they can't ignite their own, are those who run away from difficulty. Do I need all of you to survive? Not necessarily. Whatever triggers I have based upon what I observe is the examined life. The unexamined life is not worth living. So I examine my life and everyone else's. I don't want to be cured to death. Other people want to be. And to them, being cured means you are peaceful. No, you're just developing a pathway to rest in peace, selling it like a drug. The more you have to convince everyone in your world is so amazing, that you're so loving and at peace and everything is beautiful, the more you're exposing how much the opposite is actually true. Because when you finally admit how fucked up the world is, you realize you don't have to be as fucked up as the world, and you do things differently. The people who voice how messed up the world is are probably the ones who are most at peace, when you think about it, without rest and peace. And they actually show you they do not have to be as fucked up as the world. And they look at mistakes they've made. And they see that in other people, and they see it in themselves, and they fix themselves. And they're not in denial, telling people how beautiful and wonderful they are. Because I'll tell you, humans are not beautiful and wonderful. They try to be, and I understand the intentions. They can be, but what they're working through is all the different corruption from so many things. That's why we're in a great reset, because so many humans are corrupted. And if you don't even recognize the corruption within, then you'll be in denial, selling something, filtering all of your human instincts through the corruption, through the anxiety, through the cancer, disease, and chronic illness. And then your intentions come out a little fucked up, not what you intended. Those are the people who are truly at peace without rest and peace, because they know there is nothing 100% chaos free. And they know in order to survive in a fucked up society, they have to be fucked up themselves and keep to themselves so they don't fuck up society. so they don't keep fucking up society. So they leave society, because if you can't beat them, then you have to join them. And you don't want to join a fucked up society playing the same game they play. And if you try to beat them, then you end up just like them in that war. Just look at all the activists acting just like who they think their oppressors are. So then you leave. See, what the trap is that is that you're told to go and beat the system. You're told to go and be better than somebody else by being out there in denial, by playing the game and trying to beat people at their own game. No, it's when you leave and then you observe how fucked up you were in those situations. And then you also can observe how fucked up other people are in those situations. And then you observe how fucked up you are, where and how fucked up society is. And of course, when you're in it, you can't even see it until you walk away. People can't face who they are, so they can never walk away. When you're on the outside looking in, it's tough to see yourself. So if you cannot handle the mirror, you stay in it and justify selling an image like a reflection in a mirror, and sell to the world how wonderful you are, until someone breaks the mirror and exposes you for who you really are by exposing themselves. Which is why I'm not liked very much, because when I expose all of my bullshit, other people see the bullshit that they've been doing, because we're not that different. We're all pretty much the same, trying to hide how horrible we have been to ourselves and each other and to humanity as a whole. And if you can't look at that, then you'll surround yourself by people who make sure you never see yourself, except in the other people, reflecting an image that only you can accept. And so someone like me who reflects a different image of parts of them that they don't want to see, then they hate on someone like me, because they never want to face who they are, because what I'm doing right now is facing who I am, and they don't want to see. And so then they have to block and delete, and I don't blame them. When you want to face the reality of who you are and who you are as a human in this society who's so messed up, you'll either be in denial or love bomb the shit out of them, or you block them. So I get it. It's whatever. Okay, I'm gonna go to the restroom. Hold on. So you see, I took part of my wall down. All right. So before we force academic down our children's throats, make sure they have the capacity to take on intelligence through their gut and release demons, or else you're going to torture them. Because in this highly accelerated environment, cancer, disease, and chronic illness will manifest first, and then all the treatments will take away the intellectual capability and intelligence over time, and then that kid has nothing really to work with to develop a future. So here's the thing, I get that we have a lot of kids who are smart out there, and that's great. I like smart kids because I was never really one, so I think it's great. However, remember Imhotep? He was so smart. And even though he may have made some great inventions, we have a lot of inventions already been, done today, but hey, if you can invent how to develop water out of air with just a little, with just a calculator, then great. And I hope your kid has the capacity to do that. But most things out there, the system has already figured out how to do it. But you know how that goes. People are like, oh, I want my kid to be like amazing. But the thing is that the chances of your kid being like an Imhotep are probably 0 to none. You know how many kids out there that have all these amazing backgrounds? And because your kid might have a propensity for this area or that area, okay, that's great, they're doing amazing. But do they have the infrastructure in their body to sustain that much chemical reactions to cause such kinetic activity of smartness? And so you're seeing in the school system, they're forcing these kids to try to keep up to a very high level of word processing through their brain, speed reading, Okay, I read somewhere, someone saying that their kid couldn't compete with the speed reading. That even though they got all their vocabulary words correct, the reading, a paragraph in a short amount of time, they couldn't do it. They read slower. But you see how fast I can read, right? Because the brain is working, but I also developed that. I release demons. I have the infrastructure. Could I have done what I've done reading that fast and also comprehending simultaneously 30 years ago? Nope. Nope. I couldn't even do it as a kid. I had learning disabilities. Okay? And so that kid must understand the importance of all food and release. And so while they might have a great success now, are they able to sustain those successes they exhibit today? Do they have the infrastructure to develop a sustained intellectual, intelligent capability and a future? And I don't know how you would do that as far as figuring out if they have that capability, except to look at your own world and what you have passed down to your children and what kind of deficits they are working with right now. What kind of food intolerances are they dealing with, as well as neurological issues? That should tell you the indicators of future issues that may or may not come up relative to lifestyle and predisposed issues. And I'll tell you, politics around food is the biggest hurdle these kids have to deal with. So these kids that are like, gluten-free, gluten deficient, and sugar deficient, and salt deficient, and all this other stuff. Oh my God. Especially those who are forced to be vegan and vegetarian. They're missing vital nutrients, and then people become very predatory in the future because they're missing vital nutrition. And that's why kids are dying suddenly and adults are dying suddenly, because of the malnutrition. The politics around food is what destroyed them and their family. They never understood why FDA approval is so necessary in the food supply. So that way you don't think that food is poison. It's you who has the intolerances. It's you who holds so much deficiencies within and negative forces or overly excessive positive forces. I'm spitting. Yes, the intellectual capability of women and men need to be focused on and fostered, and it also develops an awareness of what we are producing in our society and what roadblocks we are dealing with, and sometimes we have to focus more on the biophysical or releasing demons and taking on substances like fatty acid, amino acid, prohormones, and minerals with all food before we tap into intellectual capability, because what are you working with here? You can't make something out of nothing. And to these poor kids that are being forced to really perform at a high level in public school, and their parents are trying to keep up with all their peers in public school, and these kids are working with such deficits, and then they try to make something out of nothing, and they have obviously intolerances to food, water, and air. Children right now are at such deficit, and they need to have substance to develop that intellectual capability, or else they will be hunting to destroy and all about the sex in the body and death and reproduction, or they're used as a tool for a very short amount of time until their body gives out. You see what happens when adults get treated constantly later on in life? They lose their life force and capacity to remember. Imagine children getting constantly treated. What kind of future will they have or not have? What you do to grandma later on in life and then applying that to your children, your young children, you will see the outcome, which is less intelligence, less future possibilities. You will see less tolerance to diversity and aggressive climates. When you see the whole family is treated the same way with their cancer, disease, and chronic illness, they end up all going over the cliff together. Because remember, in algebra, equations, what you do to one side of the equal sign and is also what you do to the other side, they will equally be done, finished. That whole family will be finished off, complete annihilation of that family genetic line. So pretend that this is a family, and this is grandma, and this is your kid. When grandma's getting treated for disease and all that and cancer, and the kid's getting treated for diseases that develop cancer in grandma, and they're both getting treated together aggressively in a highly aggressive environment, both the grandma and that child are going to lose life force and intelligence until they both get whittled down to nothing. And then maybe the parents, if they have enough infrastructure, might survive the environment. But it's very questionable if the kid will survive, very questionable if grandma survives, because they're both getting treated for disease. But then when the parent and the grandparent and the children are all getting treated for the same diseases with the same concoctions, over the counter or prescription drugs or all the other stuff, then this whole family will be gone faster. It's the one that finally redirects. Could it be the kid? Well, they don't have the capacity to. They don't have that ability to because they're not in charge. It could be the parent who redirects because the grandparents already been treated almost to death. They're on their last leg. And the parent can't legislate morals on that kid because the kid's not supposed to feel pain and suffering. So it's the parent right there in the middle is the one that potentially could survive. But you're also seeing parents dying suddenly. And so when parents die suddenly, what do you think is the future for the children? They don't have the capacity to redirect because then their children are going to go to a grandparent or they're going to go to a foster home. They're going to go to somewhere where the system is going to keep treating them to death. And they'll end up just like their mom or dad or be used as a tool. So that's the thing about what's going on with how people treat, disease and how they look at food. And so what else did I say? Yeah, I'm not going to say all this. Because, yeah. All right, yeah. Some of it I'm just reiterating because I was going through a lot of energy. Treating things to death, 0 Kelvin. What else? Yeah, the whole denial thing, absolutely. All right. And, oh yeah, someone wrote in a Diet Suddenly group, I'm a member of several holistic pet groups. Recently, I've noticed a bunch of posts regarding cats and dogs getting unexplained nosebleeds and sneezing out blood clots. Some are pretty severe. They're saying that all tests are coming back normal and their vet is baffled. They're blaming it on the you-know-whats. But that's the thing that when you're in climate change and the environment is so aggressive, causing instability, not only in the climate, but also in the immune systems, then the influential opposing forces are being attacked by the immune system, which is good, and the body trying to purge it out, which is bloody noses. Okay? Blood clots. I had those too. And seizures. And then all the tests are coming back normal. The vet is baffled, but you know what people are going to do? They're going to basically medicate their dogs to stop them from releasing. The dog gets bigger and bigger. I've seen it. See, if my dog didn't have those prior surgeries, she might have been able to overcome those situations, but she had those prior surgeries. 2. And that's a suffering, which we all realized that we couldn't watch it. So I had to put her down, but she didn't die. She didn't die at my house. She died at the freaking vet because I had to put her down because none of us could handle the suffering. But that's the thing is that you're watching people now when their animals are trying to release the demons and they're not giving the animals all the food and the food supply that they need. And the animal's trying to release and they stop them from releasing. So the animal gets bigger. That's why these animals are getting bigger. They're obese because they're all that decomposing. What is it? Methane, hydrogen sulfide, and ammonia is now trapped in the body, causing and all this stuff. And the animal feels shit, but the animal can't say anything. But the animal's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, just like a human's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, or smaller and smaller and smaller, or aging out. And so people will overly medicate their animals so they don't release, and then they destroy their animals. And so I said their immune systems are activated, doing what it's supposed to do, releasing the demons so they don't die from heart attacks and strokes and cancer. And people will overly medicate their animals so they don't release, and then they destroy their animals. People call me a monster for allowing my dog to express, and then they stop their animal from expressing, so the animal is just that now like corked up. And you wonder why they die. Because they're fucking corked up. My animal's still alive. No, it wasn't a quality life, and I understand that. That's why I put her down. But I didn't realize that with those surgeries, there's a lot more she had to overcome that none of us were prepared again. But people cork up their animals, they cork up their kids, they cork up themselves, they cork up each other, and they wonder why they are all dying suddenly. Well, that's the reason why. So, smoking cannabis is associated with increased risk of heart attack and stroke. So, people who self-medicate yeah, well, that's shit's gonna happen. And so benefits of speed reading. Now I can speed read and I can also comprehend what I'm reading because I know exactly the context of which I'm reading and then I'm just trying to find the key things. But when you have a child that hasn't fully developed themselves and are being treated to death with everything and they're in brain fog and they're starving because their parents took away food because the kid has intolerances, speed reading and also comprehending what you've read is going to be a really hard thing for a lot of these kids. And so these kids are great at spelling, but they cannot read very fast because their brain is working slower because of all the different things that are going on in their immune system that parents don't even fucking realize. Okay? Because remember, these parents want to be skinny. They want to be on diets. They want to look hot and sexual. And they want their kids to be skinny and diets and looking hot and sexual at such a young age so they can get a boyfriend when they're out of high school. And so they're not going to be able to compete with some kids who have the capacity, the kinetic energy to speed read and comprehend. And that's where back in the 80s, they had the GATE program. It's a program for gifted and talented, kids. And they were programmed to be that way. I was a resource specialist. I was in remedial everything. And psychologically, it fucks with you. When you can't keep up academically with your peers, you think you're stupid. But that was also programming. When I think I'm stupid, then I want to be smarter than everybody else. And then wait, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm surviving climate change and becoming smarter at 50. And I remember back a long time ago when I'm laying in bed thinking about, my first grade class, second grade class, and my dream is to be smarter than everyone, that I would grow up so quickly and learn everything and then go back to preschool and then just rattle off everything as if I was, that if I knew everything. And that's what I always dreamed about, that I would be smarter than everybody else because I was so stupid as a fucking kid. So whatever. But anyways, according to some experts, speed reading improves focus because it forces our brain to absorb a lot of information in a limited time window. With so much process, we're far less likely to get distracted as our brains have to concentrate to complete the task. Additionally, practicing speed reading techniques frequently is like exercise for the brain, continually improving its performance. This leads to improved information processing and memory formation, allowing us to recall more and more information. However, other research suggests that in some situations, speed reading and good comprehension may be incompatible. One study found that doubling or tripling reading speeds led to less accurate comprehension of a text. Therefore, speed reading may be best when we only need to surface understand of a text, but not when we need to complete complex understanding of a subject matter. Okay? And so sometimes I can speed read through something and I know what they're getting at. Other times I have to really go slower so I get the nuances of the conversation. The positive, negative, the adding and the taking away of what they would say is a concept. Okay? And so when you have kids who have a lot to juggle and they're deficient, malnourished, how are they going to be able to compete? That's the thing. The system wants to find those who have it all. And the ones that don't measure up, they're going to feel less than, and that does psychologically fuck with people, but that's what the system wants. They're looking for Imhoteps. They're looking for it's the Imhotepanization of children. And so you cannot compare yourself. You cannot let your kid be compared to other kids because you're not competing equally. All right? And so, all right, I read that. All right, that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to go eat because I'm hungry. But yeah, you guys figure it out. But remember, we're in some crazy times. So I would suggest that you be very careful who you deal with publicly out there in the public square. Be very careful who you deal with. You don't know what people are dealing with. Say what you got to say on Facebook and block people if they get all pissy at you. Okay, because they have triggers that you can't control. But you should be able to speak your mind without having to hold it in because you're afraid to offend your audience. If that's your situation, then you are in a jail. Okay? You are in a jail. And, all right, that's all I'm going to say. Good luck. Good luck. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to read that. Well, I don't know. Should I read this? Fuck. No, because it doesn't matter. The train's left the station. So I just wanted to write that. What is it I was trying to write? And when people do self-express with so much damage inside, they shit on the world with violent, aggressive energy that when given the opportunity, they can do physical harm to a race of people, even screw them to death. Which is why the system wants people's damage to be filtered through sexuality, but any type of aggression via violence or love leads to destruction, also predatory behaviors that one cannot tell the difference between predator and prey. They both are hunting each other. Okay, but no matter how much I can explain this to people, okay, they're not going to get it. They're in it. When you're in it, you can't see it. So no matter how much I say this stuff, no matter how much I say, yeah, what you're saying on Facebook will tell people what you would do if given the opportunity, they'd be like, yeah, whatever, Jillian, you sold out, you're this, you're that. They cannot look at who they are. They cannot understand that if you can't protect yourself, no one else will be able to save you. Okay, so when you're seeing destruction and war in places where people have failed to protect themselves and were given all the warnings and opportunity to change or be tolerant to a situation or evolve, and they don't protect themselves, and then there's war because somebody is lobbing grenades here and lobbing grenades there, and they're not trying to develop peace in their world. What makes you think you're going to be able to go and save people who haven't even saved themselves? Remember, The Walking Dead, the saviors would be the most dangerous of all. And now you look at your Facebook, the saviors have turned into predators. We're in The Walking Dead. That's why it's going to turn into a surveillance society. Once the climate shifts even more so, and it will, that's why you'll have the smart cities. Because you're seeing people supernova. You're seeing the saviors turn into the predators. They haven't saved themselves, but they're going to go save someone 6,000 miles away. And again, if given the opportunity, if they think you're the enemy, they will destroy you. Just like they're destroying themselves. Bye.